It looks like a bonus video. I actually posted this video for today's video, last night, but YouTube never processed it. So anyway, yeah, I'm here. I'll do another video. I wanted to do the comments anyway, so it'll be a comment video, and such. A lot of stupid comments, but anyway, nothing new there. Just funny, ironic even. So anyway, this was just verifying Veritasium is a shit talker, a propagandist. Look, Veritasium has been caught. Okay, the simple truth is when he did the single photon experiment, it's got whatever 4 million views or whatever it's got. He obviously knew he was cheating because back in the 50s they could take a photomultiplier and they shield it to make it cold, and it doesn't get any random photons. They can keep it out of any random photon kind of danger, and they can, count photons. They did it in the muon experiment and lots of MIT experiments. They use a photomultiplier, and it's not getting 7 error photons a second. So clearly he knew he was pushing the technology. And, why was he doing it? Well, because it's the only way the experiment would work. So it's just a clear case of forcing the experiment to match their results. They're forcing it. They're forcing it, trying so hard to verify their fable. And they have to cheat to do it. They can't do anything called honest science. It's just a fact. Every one of these experiments has to be specifically engineered to show what they want to show, and they present it all to you in this distorted manner. I've shown you the 2-slit experiment. It's just so obvious. They always show it distorted. They always talk propaganda. They talk about detector experiments and other kind of nonsense that's not even theoretically possible. And it's just so overt that they're forcing the theory, the evidence to match the theory. They're not sitting there and following the evidence. They're forcing the evidence. They have a conclusion. They want to verify it. They want you to believe. They've given you a ton of evidence to believe it. And these propagandists just constantly do this distortion, this hyperbole, this fucking exaggeration. It's overt in your face. And these liars keep saying, oh, no, keep coming up with bullshit. It's just saying, no, this is good science. It all has tech. No, it doesn't have any. And every single time you actually go and look, you'll see that that's what's going on. And every single link they ever post to me is always a piece of steaming crap. And I'll show you another example of it. Another arrogant jackass, the stupid cowboy, no doubt, claiming he's proven something, claiming he has good reason to believe, claiming there's good reason to have confidence in these people and they're not cheaters at all. And it's overt cheating. It's overtly illogical. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like they're fucking LIGO. Bullshit. We've measured the distance of 1/10,000th of the width of a proton. They can't even measure the distance of the width of a proton. Let alone 1/10,000th of it. All right. Anyway, it took me less than 5 minutes of Googling to find through, whatever that means. For anybody not willing to take my word, and you shouldn't, you can research it on your own. Research what? So again, he keeps claiming they've redone the Eddington experiment. The Eddington experiment is a specific experiment. It has to do with our sun and the fact that it's got some gravity around it. Not as much as people think, but it does have some heavy gravity, and that there should be bending of light, of objects around the sun. Now, obviously, you can't do it on the surface of the sun because the surface of the sun is too full of atmosphere. So you have to go pretty far away to get clear skies. And that's a relative term, clear skies. And so, but it's a specific experiment. And so now they're calling the Eddington experiment any solar lensing experiment. Right? Anytime you look at any sun in the sky, 4 million billion miles away, it doesn't matter how far away it is, they're going to call that the same experiment, when it's clearly not the same experiment, because we obviously can't see the difference between the corona of the object and the actual object and all of those factors. We can't look at a distant star and say, oh yeah, I can see where the corona is, and so I can look outside of that corona. There's no possibility of doing that. So this is all just bullshit. It makes no theoretical sense. It's just absolute nonsense. The Eddington experiment, if done from space, Eddington's 12-inch telescope would turn into a 40 a 50,000 inch telescope in space. That's how much better the resolution in space is. So it's gigantic, 400 times better resolution from space. And so now he's going to give me an example of a space experiment. And you're saying, okay, that's good, but it's not lensing around our sun. It's not doing the Eddington experiment. But they're going to say, oh no, it's verification, it's a validation, it's the same experiment. No, it's not the same experiment. It's not even close to the same experiment. He's such a liar. All right, anyway, so. And then he posts these comments just randomly. Like, there's no context here. He doesn't post his own jackass comments as a replies to his own jackass comments. He just posts them all as random, independent comments. And he doesn't think that's obnoxiously rude. Oh, amazing. These people are fucking so cluelessly stupid, and they're just rude. They're just so fucking stupidly rude. Alright, so fuck that. Alright, so he posts this dot crap. It's not even the real article, right? So you do a tiny, he talks about doing research. You do a tiny thing. You go to the bottom of the page and you get the real article. Okay, that gives you the real details, which are scant and useless. But regardless, it's still a better link. And so I provide the link and, a quote. In fact, the slight movement is about 1,000 times smaller than the measurement made by Eddington. So the Eddington experiment, if anybody knows anything about it, it was already pushing the limits of what's possible to measure. It's already a tiny, 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 tiny little change that you're trying to detect. So and now they're saying this experiment is 1,000 times finer. So this is like LIGO. This is the same bullshit. Let's just exaggerate what we can do. We can see an ant cross across. They use the example. I'll read it from the article. An ant crossing a quarter from 1,500 miles away. I mean, it's it's just so silly, to exaggerate your capabilities. And this is just a preposterous exaggeration that they could make any such measurements or do any such thing. All right, so smaller times than made by Eddington in his 1919 experiment. So it's 1,000 times harder thing to do, when you can do it 400 times easier thing to do would be to do solar lensing. So solar lensing is 400 times easier to do, okay, than Eddington's experiment, because you got 400 times better resolution. So it's 400 times easier to do the real Eddington experiment, and it's 1,000 times more difficult to do this experiment. And which one do they show us? The one that's 1,000 times more difficult to do. Why are they doing the one that's 1,000 times more difficult to do when they could do the one that's 400 times easier to do? Ask yourself the question, would honest science do this? Would honest science propagandize that they've confirmed something when they chose to do the experiment that's 1,000 times more difficult and chose not to do the experiment that's 400 times easier? Come on. You know the truth. Which one gives them the opportunity to cheat? Oh, the 1,000 times harder one. The 400 times easier one isn't going to provide them any room for cheating. Simple explanation. Okay. I tried posting a link to the Eddington experiment performed with the Hubble telescope. So again, it's not the Eddington experiment. It's looking at a star, a white dwarf, that's whatever, 500 light years away or whatever the hell it is. And something behind it that's, 15 billion light years away. And claiming they saw the one thing move funny, okay? Now, I'll show you the video. It's only 5 photographs, and only 3 of the photographs are relevant. Well, only 2 of the photographs are relevant. So that's the joke of this whole thing. It's just silly. It's such an exaggeration. Anyway. All right, but YouTube auto-deleted it within seconds. That's because you don't have real accounts, asshole. It's because you keep doing things that are against YouTube's policy, and then you have marginal accounts. They're not going to let jackass spammers. You look like a spammer. You look like somebody who just posts links and does random shit on the internet and just causes trouble. So you have the profile of an asshole, and YouTube treats you like one. Okay, but nobody else who has credibility or decency or any of integrity has any problem posting a link. I can post a link on anybody's video. I don't have any trouble because I don't act like an asshole on the internet, jackass. God, and it's hardly my problem. It's your problem, and it exists because you can't do anything credible, because you can't act like a decent human being. All right, you just don't know. You can't fucking fathom the concept, you fucking idiot. So anyway. Alright, so this is another thing on whatever that other guy's videos are. He posted another link to another string theory video. Maybe I'll play it. I mean, maybe there's something in it worth something, but obviously most string theory videos are idiotic. String theory doesn't provide any answers to any questions. They never showed look how the string theory math works perfectly and solves all these equations and explains gravity and explains everything. It doesn't explain a goddamn thing. And the explanation is stupid. The explanation might be Gremlins did it. I mean, the universe is made out of little rubbery bands or something. It's just so fucking stupid. The elemental universe is rubber bands. I mean, it's stupid. All right. I'm interested, and here I should go to. So I'll stay on the subject of the lensing. So here's the Hubble telescope. Okay, this is the video. Now what this video is just 5 images. So they just put 5 images into a video. It's just too stupid. All right, and it gives you this impression that, well, what am I looking at? Oh, that thing slowed down and it stopped. So people get the impression that somehow this was an example of lensing, in the sense that lensing would actually make something. If you could videotape lensing, there would be objects that look like they went forward, then they go back, and then they go forward again. And this is what it makes it look like, okay, that the big thing is being lensed by the little thing, not the other way around, right? So the argument is this big thing is what actually is lensing the little star behind it. And it's only made out, again, 5 images. There's just 5 images. It's not a real video of any kind. They're taken months apart. It's just useless crap. So the only images that matter are these ones right here in the middle, right? So there's 3 images in the middle, one there, and one there, and these are just randomly, you know, like they selected when. I don't know why they didn't pick better timing, actually. So if they took more images during that period, that's the important period, right? They only took 3 images, so they don't have much data to go on. You can see by just the look of it, right? How are you going to tell that that's the image they have? So they have the image when the object's completely obscured, you can't see it, and then they have an image when it's pretty far away, you know, in realistic terms. And the amount of gravity out there is probably going to be too little. I mean, the real size of this distant star is tiny, you know. We can't see it the way it actually is, and all of these flares are all aberration, all this stuff caused by, you know, lens diffraction. And so this is way beyond the diffraction limit. There's no way you could ever tell, you know, the change in something is going to be so tiny. So again, these are terrible images. So you're just saying you actually believe that they can tell this tiny little difference in the location of that little dot in that mess that big thing is creating. It's just so unrealistic. Oh, it's just horrible nonsense is what it is. So let me just read some of the propaganda. No, I'll go to the other page for the description, because this is the actual article. So the actual article doesn't have the video, the crappy little made to confuse the public video, right? Because that's all that video does, is confuse people. And so what do they draw as the picture? Okay, the real position is behind the white dwarf, and they're claiming they saw it, okay, someplace else. Well, that didn't happen. So it never moved that giant distance, right? So let's just say the difference in the distance is 1,000 times smaller than the Eddington difference, right? They just said it. Okay, so tiny bit of change. And so obviously it wouldn't be jumping from behind it to here, because that would be a huge, gigantic change. That would take monstrous gravity. Eddington didn't see a star behind another star. Okay, he didn't see a star behind the sun. He had to be outside the corona. You obviously have to be outside the corona. Even a white dwarf has a huge, gigantic corona. You have to be outside the corona. So you obviously could never do a lensing experiment, seeing an object behind something. Okay, so why are they doing this? Why are they illustrating it false? It's a false illustration. That's not what they saw. They didn't see the star when it was behind the other sun. They didn't do that. It's just a lie. So the image is a lie, an overt lie. Why are they lying? So if they have the facts, if they have the evidence, Why are they desperately manipulating it like this to cheat? Why are they doing it? Can't you ask yourself the question, why do you believe these people? They're propagandists. They're religious kooks. Okay? They're just sitting there forcing the evidence to validate their theory. Okay? And that's it. They don't want to see the real evidence. So only the evidence that gives an indication that they're correct will they accept. So again, they didn't do the experiment that's 400 times easier to do. No, they did the experiments 1,000 times harder to do. Okay, Albert Einstein reshaped our understanding of the fabric of space. No, he didn't. Albert Einstein suggested something that was overtly silly and way underexplained. And you all fell for it because he got a headline and he made funny faces. He was a character. That's it. Okay, so this is just pop culture crap. It's so obvious. No credibility involved. This is just being an actor's son, right? You have the same name as the famous actor and you're his son, and so you have a career. And that's it. This is garbage science. In his general theory of relativity, he proposed the revolutionary idea that massive objects warp space. Well, it wasn't revolutionary that the space around big objects has gravity in it. That is, there's a disproportion of force. Okay, so that was hardly revolutionary. What's revolutionary is he's saying photons are bent by it. Due to the effects of gravity. Until that time, Isaac Newton's theory of gravity, he didn't have a theory of gravity. So again, this is more lies. You know, they just keep distorting things. Isaac Newton overtly said, I have no theory. He exactly said almost those exact words. He said, I posit no theory. Right? And they say his theory. He didn't posit a theory of how it works. So again, more nonsense. All he did was explain this is what it's actually doing. It's the inverse square law, frankly. That's all it is. You're just putting an r squared and the mass on top times a constant, and that's it. He's just telling you it's an inverse square law, like light bulbs. Same thing. It's like this hand, okay? Yeah, yep, 4 times bigger, half the distance, 4 times bigger. That's all he told you. I don't posit anything else. That's the force. And it's proportional to how much mass you have, how much force you collect. You collect the mass based on how many atoms you have. The more atoms you have, the more mass you have. Therefore, the more force you collect, therefore you move the same amount as the guy getting pushed by the force, because it's all about how many atoms you have. How many electrons and protons. From 2 centuries, either held sway, whatever that is, that space is unchanging, whatever. Obviously, Newton didn't say space was unchanging. It's full of something that's pushing it. He said, obviously, there's something happening. Obviously, there's a mechanism. It's not like just ESP or something. It doesn't just magically fall. But that's what Ben Space says. It just magically falls. Yeah. Doesn't say how it does it. Doesn't say how the electron knows I'm supposed to fall into the earth. Okay. Einstein's theory, which was nothing, was a vacuous pile of nothing as a theory, was experimentally verified. So again, it wasn't verified. It wasn't proven. The evidence absolutely sucks. So again, they'll say 4 years later, when a team led by British astronomer Sir Eddington, Arthur Eddington, measured how much sun's gravity deflected the image of the background star. So they already know it's controversial. They already know that there's all this kind of talk that it took them 6 months to figure it out, and it took them 6 months because they had to figure out which data they were going to accept, and that the data that didn't meet their conclusion they threw in the garbage, and that they completely quote mine the evidence, and that it's a really crappy experiment. The weather absolutely sucked for both teams. Both teams didn't they got 10% of the quality of data. And, you know, they're just pretending it was a great experiment that proved something. No, it was a terrible experiment that actually proved nothing. Eddington says in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. Did they quote that? Do these honest scientists quote Eddington saying, I wouldn't stake my life on these results? No, they don't quote that. As its light grazed the sun during a solar eclipse. How do you do that grazing? No, it didn't graze. Okay, they had to first make sure the sun was far enough away from the star that they were looking at was far enough away enough from the sun, so they weren't just seeing scatter. They weren't seeing scatter creates a path in all directions, right? So scatter, if I put scatter in here, the light that goes this way will end up going towards you, okay? So every path will get represented. So you can see objects behind other objects theoretically in terms of their light in fog, because the fog scatters the light around the other objects. I mean, so you know you can't be looking through fog. If you look through fog, you're going to cheat the experiment, okay? Because the light will scatter to all places. Everybody gets to see almost everything, you know what I mean, in terms of a light. Any light source will look like, be visible from any location. Astronomers had to wait a century, however. so they had to wait a century? No, they didn't. We've had satellites in space for a long time. To build telescopes powerful enough. No, you need one 400 times less powerful. So this is another lie. Oh, we need powerful telescope. No, we don't. We don't need any more powerful telescope. You could have verified anything at any time with a 12-inch telescope. So anybody who had a 12-inch telescope could have waited for the perfect eclipse over North America, and they could have done it from the ground. But they could have done it from space, and it'd be 400 times better resolution. So you need 400 times less good quality equipment. I could go up into space, onto the space shuttle with this fucking lens and a flip camera, and I could do the goddamn experiment better than Eddington did it. I'd have better quality data than Eddington had. This is 400 times better than Eddington's equipment in space. Put this in space and it's 400 times better than Eddington's equipment. So they're just lying some more, like this is some sort of technical hurdle. No, just getting into space was a huge advantage and you didn't use it for some reason. For some dopey reason that no one will ever explain, they've never done the experiment from space, the real Eddington experiment. They've never looked where the sun is perfectly black. Everything next to the sun is perfectly black. Black space. You can see all the stars all the time. Okay? You don't have to wait for any stupid eclipses. So you can do the experiment any day. You don't have to wait for any special circumstance. Any day you can do it. And you can do it with 400 times weaker equipment. Alright, to detect the gravitational warping phenomenon caused by a star outside the solar system. So again, why would you use one outside the solar system? It's at the Eddington experiment? No. Why won't you use Jupiter? It has pretty good gravity and it doesn't have a gigantic atmosphere in your way. I mean, the gravity outside of its atmosphere is still substantial. The amount of deflection is so small, only the sharpness of the Hubble telescope could measure it. So again, we saw the image, right? I showed you the image. Not very sharp, frankly, okay? Tons of aberration, tons of distortions. How are you going to see this tiny bit of change in all of that noise? Oh, not realistically possible, frankly. But if you did the real solar lensing experiment, you'd have very clear, little, nice, perfectly round suns and very nice things to look at. 400 times easier experiment to do. And you didn't do it. Hubble observed the nearby white dwarf star that passes in front of a background star. The close alignment of the white dwarf's gravity bent light from the distant star, says them, right? And from 3 photographs, and obviously those 3 photographs weren't perfect distances between the 2 objects. You need the right distance between the 2 objects. You need enough gravity, so it has to be close enough, but it can't be so close that it's in the corona. Facts. These are all just facts. Sorry. Okay. And obviously they didn't do that. Okay. Making it appear offset by 2 milliseconds from its actual position. I don't know why they say milliseconds. They should say of arc. This deviation is so small that it's equivalent to observing an ant cross across the surface of a quarter from 1,500 miles away. So do you believe we can watch an ant crawl across a quarter from 1,500 miles away? No, we can't. So why are they saying we did it? I mean, it's just too fucking stupid. So another false, fake, phony image again. Fake, phony crap. Astronomers have used sharp vision NASA Hubble telescope to repeat a century-old test of Eddington's of Einstein's theory of relativity. So again, it's not the same experiment. They didn't repeat anything. It's a completely different experiment. It's just silly to say, oh, it's the same experiment. It's not even close. Okay, the Hubble team measured the mass of the white dwarf. Okay, so this is how they measured the mass of the white dwarf, was based on what they assumed to be the gravitational movement of this background star. So again, this is just such horseshit. This is dark matter all over the place. They're using some other fake thing to measure some kind of real thing. And we there's no way we can say they're wrong, right? How am I going to dispute them? There's no other data to compare it to by seeing how much it deflects the light from the background star. This observation represents the first time Hubble has witnessed this type of effect created by a star. So they've never seen it with the sun. All right, NASA, look, a NASA scientist said clearly they've never seen anything outside the sun's corona, ever, bent. So outside the sun's corona, nothing's ever been bent. All right, so this is all just hype and lies. They just keep selling this idea that it happens, keep selling the idea that we've gotten proof or we've got evidence, and what are they doing with distortions, images that are complete distortions that don't represent the actual experiment, and are misleading people all over the place in the terms of saying this is the Eddington experiment when it really isn't the Eddington experiment at all. I mean, watching solar lens again from a white dwarf, 5 light years away or whatever the frig it is. Again, how can you tell how far the other object is from the corona of that white dwarf? The data provided a solid estimate of the white dwarf's mass and yield insights into theories and structures. Yeah, obviously you're confirming yourself. You're confirming your confirmations with your confirmations of your confirmation. This is just circular science. First proposed in 1915, Eddington's general theory describes how massive objects warp space, which we feel as gravity, which is just too stupid. And again, this feeling crap. It's not about feeling, it's about objects moving. All right, the theory was experimentally verified. This is the same shit. Oh, I already read that. What the hell happened here? Okay, astronomers can use this effect to magnify images, different galaxies or closer range or measure shift. Okay, so they keep saying they've used it. They won't show me that evidence. Researchers had to wait a century, however, to build telescopes powerful enough. We did that. Hubble observed near a nearby white dwarf. We did that. Used the deflection measurement. Okay, the mass. This technique opens a window to a new method to determine sun's mass. So they're going to claim they have a new method of doing something, and it requires them to do something that's 1,000 times a harder measurement than Eddington's. And Eddington's was, again, already pushing credibility. It was already a really difficult experiment with perfect data. And here they are pretending we can do something 1,000 times harder to do, which is just crap. The star has a companion, so this is another funny part, right? We don't even see the companion. So apparently there's a second star somewhere, okay, that they're not showing you in that picture. And it has to be relatively close. I mean, it's so close that it's only like twice the width of our solar system, in a sense, twice the distance to Pluto. So it's not that far away when you think about it in terms of what the image would show. Right? So they're telling you right here that picture I showed you, right, of that stupid big blob, there's really a red dwarf somewhere. Where the hell is it? It should be in the picture. Okay, normally if a sun's companion, if a star has a companion, astronomers can determine the mass by measuring the double system's orbital motion. Although Stein 251b has a companion, a bright red dwarf, astronomers cannot accurately measure its mass because the suns are too far apart. So they're really not that far apart, but whatever. The stars are at least 5 billion miles apart, almost twice Pluto's present distance from the sun. So again, I mean, realistically, that's not very far if I'm looking at it from light years away. If I'm looking at it from light years away, that's pretty damn fucking close. This micro lensing method is a very independent and direct way to determine the mass of a star. Explained an asshole who's up this nonsense colon. Explained by researcher Kalaya Shalulu or whatever, Shahu, of the Space Telescope Science Institute. Oh, isn't that interesting? Maryland. It's like placing the star on the scale and deflection is analogous to the movement of the needle on the scale. Yeah, right. And it's 1,000 times more difficult than the Eddington experiment, which they're claiming it is, which is kind of funny. It's 1,000 times harder to do, but it's the same experiment. Oh, I guess it's not the same experiment then. Okay. Shuhu will present his team's finding at some point June 7th, in Texas. Well, apparently it didn't make much news because nobody's citing it as, well, we got proof. Because it's shit as proof. Absolute steaming shit. The Hubble analysis also helped astronomers verify the theory of how white dwarfs' radius is determined by its mass. Again, like they can do any of this from that cruddy, crappy image. If they had a better image, they would have showed it to you. They don't have a better image to show you except that pixelated, horrible, it almost looked like a cross. It was so freaking distorted. It wasn't even a round star. Okay, it's so distorted. And they were able to tell these tiny little differences in all of that distortion. That's their claim. And it's a bullshit claim. Identified, blah, 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 the background star after combing through data of more than 5,000 stars in a catalog of nearby stars that appeared to move quickly across the sky. Stars with the higher apparent motion across the sky have a greater chance of passing in front of a distant background star. I would think they're passing in front of stuff all the fucking time, right? I mean, if something is a few hundred, let's say, light years away, there are, thousands or millions of stars that are behind it all the time because they're billions of light years away. They can be all kinds of distances away. So there's always somebody behind everybody. And, this is the joke. The star there we're looking at is 400 times brighter than the star in the background. So that's another problem. So they saw the little thing that's one, the other thing is 400 times brighter, but they saw the thing that's just 1%. One of that 400. After identifying B and rapid research Hubble field camera 3 to observe the white dwarf 7 different times over a 2-year period, right? You saw the images. They suck, and there's only 3 of them that are relevant. All right, the Hubble observations were challenging and time-consuming. I don't even know what that is. They took 7 images over a period of whatever it is, 3 years, and they called that challenging and time-consuming. Hilarious, right? I mean, that's just hilarious. The research team had to analyze the white dwarf's velocity and direction it was moving in order to predict when it would arrive in a position to bend. Again, they don't. I mean, this is like the ABCs of drawing a straight line and saying this is where it's going. I mean, that's not very hard to do. So even that's bullshit. Astronomers also had to measure the tiny amount of deflected starlight. Appears to be 400 times brighter. Appears 400 times brighter than the distant background star. So we know that they've distorted that image because obviously in that image it wasn't 400 times brighter. Said team member, blah, 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 who led the analysis to precisely measure the position of the stars in the Hubble image. So measuring the extremely small deflection is like trying to see a firefly move next to a light bulb. Well, I don't know if that's a very good analogy, but whatever. The movement of the insect is very small, and the glow of the light bulb makes it difficult to see the insect moving. Yeah. Again, they can't see anything moving, so this is all bullshit. They're time-lapse photographs of things moving incredibly slowly from our perspective. In fact, this slight movement is about 1,000 times smaller than the measurement made by Eddington. So again, 1,000 times harder to do than Eddington's measurement, which was incredibly marginal. I mean, it's a really difficult thing to measure, and that never changed. So 1,000 times harder than impossible. So you already have something that's really difficult, and you make it 1,000 times really difficult. What does that equal? What does 1,000 times really difficult equal? I mean, I think it equals ludicrous. Okay. Is named for its discoverer. Who cares? Catholic priest thing. Anyway, 5,000 light years away. So one is 17 light years away. So the little one is 17 light years away. No, Okay, no, the big one is 17 light years away, and the little one was 5,000 light years away. Okay. The researchers plan to use Hubble to conduct similar micro lensing study for some other bullshit. So they won't do this our own sun, okay? But they'll do all these other things, okay? So our solar system's closest stellar neighbor. So they plan on doing the sun that's the closest to us, but we won't do our own sun. The one that's the closest, the sun, they won't do that, but they'll do our closest neighbor. I mean, it's just such bullshit, right? And we won't see that data. We'll never see that happen, okay? Because guess what? It's not going to work. Okay, the Hubble Space Telescope is a project of international cooperation, right, between NASA and a bunch of propagandists, and so they're all sitting there trying to prove. They're all part of the cult. It's all just a fucking religion of relativity and quantum mechanics, and that's all it is, and they're just going to show you the evidence that supports their nonsense, and they're never going to show you any other evidence, and obviously we didn't even see any evidence here, really. We saw a horrible, fake, phony, wrong, distorted view of what their experiment actually was. They didn't see a sun behind another sun. They didn't see a star behind another star. It didn't happen. It's a lie, and it's right there in your face. And I'm saying, why, if they have the truth, are they distorting it? Why are they exaggerating it? If it's a good argument they have to make, why aren't they making the good argument? Why are they just doing this hype? And there's not a single piece of evidence here of any real data, of anything that really was compared. They're not showing you the real pixels they measured and compared. They're showing you nothing. And they're showing you nothing because if they really showed you what they did, you'd say, hey, you're cheating. Just like Veritasium cheated. All right, I know that was a long rant, but it's all part of the fun. This is garbage. So this is the crap they keep posting me to. Oh, here's my proof. Here's the proof. You're such an idiot because you don't know this was great proof. Obviously, nobody knows about this proof because it's a pile of shit. Okay, nobody even cites it because it's a pile of shit. And they'd be embarrassed to cite this as good evidence. This is garbage as evidence. Absolute crap as evidence of anything. Ugh. You're so pathetic, people. Alright, so now I'll read this one. I'm interested, and I've got some questions. Could you hypothetically measure the force of force bits in newtons? Well, of course you can. You just decide how big you want to make one, and then you say just divide it into the total force of the newtons. So, yeah. But how exactly you're going to do that? How am I going to know exactly how small the raindrops are, so to speak? There's no, being able to calculate, on the millionth scale, when, something moves an inch, but it's moving an inch because 1 trillion things moved it, or 2 trillion things moved it. I can't tell the difference between 1 trillion and 2 trillion. I mean, the tiny amount of difference of each bit's little energy would be so tiny, there'd be no way to detect, whether it was... If I make microbes small enough, I can't see them, so I can say, is it one strong, big microbe, or is it about 10 little microbes? I couldn't tell. Anyway, what force bits lose momentum as you describe? Well, they don't really lose momentum. It's just that, in a sense, they're always working. They're Sisyphus. And the argument simply is that Sisyphus is being measured in how fast he gets from point A to point B. And then I force Sisyphus to carry a boulder for 1 mile of his 10-mile trek. So he's moving 10 miles, and for 1 mile I force him to carry a boulder. He can't move as fast when he's got a boulder, so he slows down, essentially. So the total trip length is now longer, which means his average speed is declined, which means his momentum over the whole period, he's lost some. It's just a fact. Now, yes, a rock has gone from point A to point B, okay, and while Sisyphus was moving, he moved a rock, a certain distance, but there's nothing else to show for it. So essentially, from the universe's perspective, the universe has gotten colder because momentum was lost moving something from point A to point B. All right. let's see. You describe, do they slow down? So again, they're obviously Sisyphus is slowed down. Yes. So if you want to say it's slowed down, yeah, it's slowed down because it's pushing matter. That's a loss of momentum, but it's not like it has lost power or it isn't still Sisyphus. So as soon as Sisyphus drops the boulder, he goes back to running his normal speed. He doesn't have to speed up or something. He's just goes back to normal as soon as he lets go of the thing stopping him. It's like a bird flying. It could be flapping its wings, right? And I could tie a string to its fucking paw, and hold it, and it can't get anywhere. As soon as I let go of the string, it's going its normal speed. What determines the speed of force? Well, I guess it's just a fact of the universe. So it could have been this much or this much or that much or that much. Who cares? Yeah, this is how the universe works. That's all. What would be, if you made it out of dominoes, what determines the height of the domino? What determines the width of the domino? Who cares? It happens to be what the universe is made of. It just happens to be. It has to be made out of something. You understand that, don't you? And I don't believe the theory that some thing that was invented by nothing, that was never created, that never evolved, that never started somewhere else as something else, invented it all. Okay, so yeah, I don't think the grand inventor invented it. Invented inventing. Invention was invented by the inventor. Yeah, I don't think that happened. Fuck. Alright, so Superior Mind answers. And apparently somebody liked the answer, which is great. Alright, the bits are proposed as fundamental. In other words, there could be no known smaller units and their momentum exists in the direction they travel. Yes, I like that. Simple enough statement. Yes, this is elemental. There's nothing before this in the sense of nothing that you have to worry about. Now, obviously, I could say the whole thing evolved. So, yes, it started with some sort of little bip, and then, every billion years it bips and bips and bips, and after a trillion years, you have trillions of particles. Something like that could be the truth. So it's basically a single unit of momentum itself. They are themselves what momentum is made of. They're the things. Everything that's moving is moving because something moving the speed of light is forcing it to. So everything is just a derivative of the stuff going the speed of light. All right. They're components to what we refer to as a photon in their distancing. Well, what we refer to as a photon is a tiny percentage of this force stuff that actually happens to be at a specific frequency because of something moving in a specific way to create the frequency. Okay, determines their frequency, rate of interaction, which is also dependent on our own velocity. The initial arrangement of emission of those components determines polarity. The polarity, I wouldn't say it that way, frankly, because that sounds like the elemental bits have a polarity. They don't. You can shoot a gun, boom, 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 moving the gun. You can move the gun to different locations and create a polarity of bullets, but the bullets don't have any polarity. So force bits are taken and given directional exchanges. They never slow down. They're just occupied pushing. And while they're occupied pushing, they're not going as fast. They're not getting from point A to point B at the same rate. And that means they've theoretically lost momentum. Okay, in a sense, they're only more goes in than comes out. More goes in than comes out. It's just a constant problem because to move the matter delays the processing of everything that goes in. It takes longer for it to go out. It's always a little bit behind. And always being behind means it always looks like you're running a deficit. Like let's say you pay your credit card. You put $10,000 on the credit card. You're in debt. Well, if you're putting 10,000 more debt in at the same exact time you pay the old debt, but you're still $10,000 behind. So you never catch up unless I give you some free lunch, some free future, where you get to pay the 10,000 without borrowing another 10,000. then you will look like you're back to equilibrium again. But you can't do that. You can't jump to the future and see where you actually paid that debt. So you're always stuck $10,000 in the hole. Alright, so force bits are taken and given directional exchanges and never slow down. They only become tied up in repeating pattern of internal direction changes inside the matter. Well, as long as the matter is moving, it's occupying force, and for that second or millisecond or trillisecond, it's actually creating a deficit, in the sense that somewhere in the universe something was supposed to be hitting it and it didn't show up on time. It didn't show up. It just didn't fucking show up. Okay. Inside the matter and receives them. It is unknown what determines the speed of force. One might suppose it could be an emergent result of some kind of equilibrium, but very well could be force simply travels one speed. Yes, not simultaneous. It's not simultaneous. I mean, it's not instantaneous. So therefore, it's something other than instantaneous, and just happens to be whatever the speed of light is. But it could have been twice as fast or twice as slow. And pretty much the universe could look just the same. Really doesn't matter if it's the origin of all motion. So whatever its speed is, it could be anything. It really doesn't matter, because time really isn't a real thing. Okay, time is just the progression. The fact that it's not instantaneous. So anything less than instantaneous, it could be even variable all the time. It could be changing. We wouldn't be able to tell the difference, because we're only measuring movement. All right, a lot of it could be thought of in terms of tendencies and average a few sums of interactions. Well, obviously all of that has to be true. So anyway, he wrote some more stuff, and I will read it and blah, blah, blah. But somebody replied to that and said, thank you, blah, 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 and I don't see that anywhere. So I'm surprised. There was more to that thread, and somehow it's, oh, maybe this is it. Sorry. Yeah, it's right here. This is a fantastic summary. Your explanation of time dilation blew my mind. So it's actually my explanation, but you know, whatever. Also, let's see, was it noteworthy is that matter is composed of these force bits and only move at one speed, and you start seeing a drop in event rates as you add velocity to the matter because the components only move at one speed. Well, okay, so, you know, well, anyway, I guess he went into time dilation somewhere in here. Well, anyway. For a while, but I'm struggling to really understand that concept till now. Duh, it's so simple. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you got something out of it. Thanks. A lot of it's simple once you've realized what's being said. The hard part is getting the idea across, although diagrams and animations do help a lot, which is one thing about nice thing about YouTube. Yes, the chalkboard does help, I think. But whatever. You keep sucking in that nicotine, buddy. So this is, again, this guy's wondering why you can't post links when this is the best you got. Yeah, I got addicted to nicotine when I was 11 years old. Okay, and it's I have to say, it's been very, very good to me. Yes, it can kill you if you smoke it with a tar and all that crap, but now I'm vaping it, which is, now I'm just getting the nicotine, and nicotine doesn't cause cancer and doesn't do any of these horrible things. So frankly, what business is it of yours? Why does this matter to you? I'm a nicotine addict. So what? Wow. What does that mean to you? Can I expect your life and see that you're addicted to some silly, stupid things? With you, a cupcake eater, you know, Twinkies. I mean, it's just so fucking silly. So that's what you got as an argument, huh? So this is people who think they're right, and they have the truth, and they have the evidence on their side, and this is how they behave. This is the extent of their brilliant arguments. Fuck. I mean, too fucking stupid. Alright, this is not a good name. I have to agree with you on this one. Theora needs to stick with the voids, counter void, space, counter space. No, he doesn't need to stick to any of that crap either, but whatever. Yeah, he's just so full of shit. Alright, I write to share some clean, inexpensive energy info. Oh, isn't that special? since we already have some decent non-polluting ways to making electrical power, the solution is to then use that clean power to make more clean power. Well, I don't even know what you're talking about, lunatic. It can't make power twice. And you say it's clean, but is it really? So, I mean, the fact is that solar panels are unsustainable. Lithium batteries are unsustainable. Lots of this stuff is unsustainable. You're going to use up all the resources to make these things, and you're polluting the environment to do it, and you're releasing a bunch of CO2 to manufacture, and you're doing all of these things that aren't very green. So it's like your electric car solution. It's not even close to a solution. It's a solution to smog, in cities, but it's not a solution to all the places where the smoke is coming out of the fucking smokestack, idiot. And clean power is expensive. The fact is, you want to pay 10 times more? Well, fine. You're not paying for it, so that's the other part, right? It's subsidized, you idiot. So you don't even understand. You're not paying the real price. This fake gasoline they're offering you, right? They're offering you this fake green gasoline. Well, they've cheated on the price, right? So you're not paying the $10 you really pay. You're paying, and so the other stuff that costs $5 doesn't look as good a deal because you're getting it for $1. But you're not paying the real price. Okay, my own research suggests that it is practical to optimize the design of rotary mechanical systems. Well, again, so you have this magical bearing, the non-friction bearings that you've invented. Well, then invent them. Get to it, fuckhead. For the specific purpose of creating inertia MA, whatever that inherent MA. There's no inherent MA, so you're just so fucking stupid. Mechanical advantage, he calls it. I mean, you people are so fucking deluded. The idea is the same as a wind turbine rotor where RPMs are low, but massive amounts of inherent MA are present. I mean, the difference between torque and velocity isn't all that interesting, frankly. It's all in watts, asshole. It's all in one kind of thing, the amount of energy, the amount of work done. All right, and it doesn't matter whether you do it hard and slow or soft and fast. At the rotor center of rotation. Oh, you're just too fucking stupid. So what the hell is this a link to? God, I'm just so sick of these morons. Oh, at least he has a channel. Great video so far. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I get it. Totally. Thank you. Oh, you're talking from the kitchen. Oh, fucking A. People are too stupid to even do the minimums of making a reasonable video, and they're going to tell me the truth. Way to go, David. I'll watch some of that later. I'm not here to debunk your nonsense, okay? I'm really not. I don't have time to go to every little crazy pothead and say, whoa, what the hell did you think? There's no point, okay? It's either attack my theory or defend their theory. Conventional. But this, I have my own little wacky world I'm living in crap. Just doesn't do my channel any good. There's just no point in it. Alright, I'm actually amazed I'm not blocked yet. So, you must have slept in some days. Oh, so he's complaining. I find that I have not been blocked yet, and yet we'll wait and wait. The next day I'll find that I have not been blocked, and one day it will dawn on me why this is so. So I point out stupid comments are not automatically blocked. So you say a lot of stupid shit, and so I'll point out how you're a stupid moron. Now, you deleted some of your stupid shit, but you had actually other stupid shit on this video. But as long as invasions of privacy, doxing, and other irrelevant harassment is what'll get you blocked, asshole. So yeah, invading my privacy, playing with my parents' names, my sisters, my address, that stuff gets you blocked, asshole. I don't care if you want to make rude and stupid comments. I mean, I do care that there has to be some relevance and something meaningful in there somewhere. You can't just say, talk about your poo. Okay? Talking about your poo is not a valid, relevant comment. So if you can't do better than that, you'll get blocked, you'll get deleted, because it's just a waste of everybody's time. All right, but I really haven't violated your rights to make a rational, reasonable counter argument. It's just that you've been incapable of doing it without doing something overtly against YouTube's policies for good reason. Idiot. All right, if I had a pair of chopsticks 250,000 miles long, then I would be able to pick up moon rocks faster than light. So you don't really mean pick them up, you mean move them, don't you, moron? And obviously you can't make a chopstick that long, and obviously you can't move a chopstick that heavy, and obviously you can't do any of the things you're required to do to break the laws of physics, so you wouldn't really do that, would you? Oh, that's right, you wouldn't. I mean, this is just such baby bullshit. I mean, I don't even know why people bring this crap up. It means nothing. It's just fucking stupid. Yes, you can move a laser beam across the moon, and it's moving faster than the speed of light because it went the whole distance across the moon in a millisecond. No, it didn't. That never happened. Nothing ever traveled that distance, you dumbass. Oh, fuck. So, yeah, I'll remove it this time, but yes, you're on the fuck you list. And we tuned in to watch the expressions on Franklin's face throughout this debate. Well, then you're not going to be tuned in very long. I'll just say goodbye then, okay? Because you're wasting my fucking time. Oh, god damn. Oh, and there's nothing wrong with more than one comment on a video. Yeah, there is. It's really rude. If you can't understand that, you're really stupid. There's no reason to make more than one comment anymore because you can type more comments. There's a little read more thing. You can type plenty of stuff. You can annotate your own comments by replying to them and keeping all of your nonsense in one place. And that's being civil and decent. But it's obscenely rude to keep your comments in everybody's face. It's just like typing in all caps. It's overtly rude. But you're too stupid to figure that out. Oh, fuck that comment. Replied to. Alright. There is no logical reason that pushes are more real than pulls. So first argument is it's more fundamental. But obviously there's every reason. You can't describe... push is easy. I throw something at somebody else, push. We have it. All I have to do is bang into them. Push. It's done. Pull can't be described. There's no such thing. There's no elemental pull. Can't happen. Moron. I mean, I don't even know how somebody could be this fucking dumb to argue something so obviously true. I mean, it's obviously true that push is a billion times more elemental than anything you would call a pull. Alright, it is a bias based on experience in the universe that pushes are real. So he's saying that pushes aren't real. The concept of hitting something, pushing into its space, moving from the space you occupy into the space it occupies and pushing it, that's not a real thing. And so that's why we're getting confused, is because we think that has something to do with how the universe works. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that has something to do with how the universe works, retard. I mean, who knows what this loop-de-doo believes? But maybe the universe doesn't care about your presuppositions and intuitions. So this has anything to do. All my intuitions are built out of observing the universe. So I guess the universe must know something about it, because guess what? My intuitions are made out of observing the universe, retard. Which themselves are created, molded by experiences with the universe itself. Exactly. Yeah. When a massive amount of data, which also counts as an experience with the universe, tells us that pull is more real, then that means our intuition was... So there's no massive amount of data that says anything about pull being real. So again, that's just a lie. What data indicates that pull is real? Again, mock gravity works just fine explaining gravity, so you can't use gravity as an argument. Can't use magnetism because it has this attraction repulsion thing again, so you can just say, well, you're just missing the push. So there's no data. Anyway, I don't think there exists a supposed pull effect in the universe that couldn't be explained by a push force. Yes, that's a simple argument. the Occam razor simple explanation works, okay? So you have to come up with some complex thing saying the universe is fooling us. There's actually a pull, but it's hiding it from us. Okay, if you think otherwise, give me an example, please. And there won't be one. How about magnetism? So again, how's that an example of pull? It does it. He's not going to explain how it excludes push. That the attractive force of a magnet isn't created by push. So, done. Nothing. And your claim that push forces are more... So here he says it again, the same fucking comment. Is also a contradiction. What force holds the force bits together? Who cares? What do you mean they don't have to be held together? It's retarded. The elemental things don't have to be held together. They're elemental, retard. The force bits must be held together by some force. So again, held together how? They're not a medium. Mediums require things to be stuck together. I'm not claiming the force is a medium. Okay, or else they would burst into a cloud of inferior stuff. But whatever that. So again, he doesn't say the universe can be made out of stuff. It has to be made out of stuff that can't be held together. So it all has to always fall apart because it could never be, and it always has to be subdividable. Okay, Hilster at least understands this contradiction. How does he understand it? This is a particle theory, you retard. He doesn't hold the particles together with anything. That is why he believes there is no smallest particle. Well, he believes in it's whatever, mustard all the way down. I mean, it's too stupid. And that it's, things are going faster and faster and all of that crap. It's just nonsense. Okay, well, at least we know what kind of retard you are. So you're a D. Hilster retard. You think the Earth is expanding and you think there's infinite all the way downs, whatever the fuck that would mean. You believe in infinities. But these finer points seem lost on the great Gare. Yeah, that's right. They're lost on me because it's absolute silly baby talk. You have absolutely zero evidence of any infinity anywhere ever being conceptually rational. That it doesn't lead to paradoxes. Would you say there is or is not a fundamental component? The above seems to imply the latter. Also, how would a pull work? If two things are not within proximity, how do they interact by pull? What are the mechanics? Well, there's no mechanics to pull. That's the whole problem. It can't be done. Why are you getting so worked up? So he says he's getting worked up. No, he's asked you some questions to answer, jackass. Alright, just eat some popcorn. So just bullshit answers from that too easy. Well, I already blocked him, so fuck him. Yeah, he's obviously a waste of time. I'm not getting worked up. Okay, I'd like to poke holes in the insane people's theories. It's fun for me. Oh, okay, so he was talking to the other troll. But that's not going to change anything. You're already dumb. So he puts a Trump thing in here. Although I just see he likes to be irrelevant. Okay, just sit back and eat some popcorn. Given all the internal inconsistencies, his theory has less chance of being right than... So you prove that with what argument? So there's no argument that you proved anything I said to be wrong. You didn't give me a link. You didn't give me anything of value. Zero. As evidence why your fantasy is correct and my fantasy can't be correct. So in no way did you explain anything at all. Alright, so you really are a piece of shit. Then aliens landing in front of my lawn. So he says it's more unlikely. Okay, well, you're going to eat those words, jackass, and it's too bad you don't have any integrity. See, if you really had some integrity, you'd put your real name. You'd sign this piece of shit comment, okay, with some kind of real integrity behind it. And maybe that'll happen in the future, okay? Because, frankly, it should happen in the future. All you assholes should be outed for the jackasses you are. If you're going to type shit on the internet, you ought to be accountable for the shit you type. So, some future date, it really should be known what kind of asshole you were, and you typed this kind of shit, and you were completely wrong. And you didn't take any account for it. And you're wrong in a sense that you're wrong without providing any evidence at all. You just spout your bullshit, crappy, shitty opinion based on no evidence. So you're just a slandering hunk of shit. Okay, front lawn and admitting that Trump is their manufacturing robot who escaped. I don't know, malfunctioning robot who escaped. Whatever this even has to do with. Like aliens would make Trump. Yeah, sure they would. I'm not getting, okay, so whatever. They're both assholes, but yeah, so it's indistinguishable. Asshole on asshole. It's just kind of a waste of my time. All right, so it makes zero sense to call forces soldiers. So again, it makes perfect sense if you want to understand how mayhem happens. How does the rape and the pillage and the burnings and the buildings get blown up and the grenades go off, and how does all that stuff happen? Oh, the soldiers are making it happen. Yeah, so in that sense, it makes it understandable. Why is things changing? Well, because the soldiers are changing them. They're pushing them around. So it's just too stupid to say that's not a good analogy when, no, it's a perfectly good analogy. The things moving. They're the things moving, and the buildings and the cars and all the other stuff move because the soldiers are moving them. Okay, for one thing, it's an analogy, not the truth. So again, analogies are perfectly valid, so whatever. That's exactly how everybody explains everything, is through some analogy, asshole. I don't know whether you realize that, but everybody compares things to being frozen or some kind of concept that's an analogy to like water being frozen, you know. This is one of the things that the folks who wrote the Bible argue from analogy. So that doesn't even make sense. The Bible doesn't have analogies in it. It has parables, and parables are based on real stories, and they're not comparing two kinds of things. Like if they're trying to teach you not to steal candy from a baby, okay, they're not using some other example. They're really saying overtly, don't steal candy from a baby. Here's the story of the baby stealers and what happens to them. So it's not an analogy, you idiot. It's a direct allegory. Okay, that's bad. To its circular logic. Well, again, it isn't, because these analogies have nothing. They're too abstract. They're disconnected. Soldiers have nothing to do with physics. So it's a perfectly valid analogy. You say that the force bits move and that they bump into the matter and make the matter move with the force. No, they make the matter move, and the force is occupied doing the moving. Yes. The force forces the matter to move, and the force is changed because it's now got to push matter. All right, so the force bits had force. They always have force. Sisyphus is always walking. All I'm doing is saying, carry this 30-pound rock. And he just walks slower when he's carrying a 30-pound rock. Okay, and impart that force into the matter. No, they don't impart anything. They are literally pushing it. They're not imparting it. They're not giving them force. They're literally carrying the matter, so to speak. Okay, so the force bit had its property called force. It had a speed, and the speed is reduced because it's got to carry a bigger load. It's that simple. It's not any more complicated than that, and you're really fucking goddamn dumb. Real physicists use the word force to talk about the very property that the force bits have. So again, no, they talk about force as some carrier of force, some carrier of a message that says, come towards me or leave me alone. They use the word force in a silly, nonsensical, irrational way. They call things virtual photons. That's the physics you're defending. You say that's good science. Making up crap like virtual photon is good science. The bent space tells the nothing. The nothing tells the something what to do. That's your physics, retard. But you say the force bits are force. I'm saying it quite clearly. That's why you call them force bits, because they're bits of something moving the speed of light. And because it's moving the speed of light, it has momentum, because it does have some kind of mass. So it has momentum, and it hits things with its momentum. But the force bits have force. Yes, they don't lose their momentum. They just drag matter along. And while they're dragging the matter, they have to slow down. Say if Sisyphus had to pull the rock, right? He's got a rope. He's got to pull the rock. You could understand he's not going to move as fast when he's pulling a rock. You dumbass. I mean, how stupid can you people pretend to be? I mean, you're just pretending you can't understand how that would slow somebody down because they have to drag a 30-pound rock? All right, and you use force bits to cause force in other things. No, I'm saying that the matter has to be pushed by force, so there has to be force pushers all the time. Okay, but you don't tell how the force bits got force in the first place. Well, again, if you're asking me to explain how the universe was invented, aren't you the religious kook? So why are you talking about how religion is stupid when you're just sitting there saying you have to give me the creation story? Who told? Where did Einstein tell us where bent space came from? Where did he tell us how it was invented and who invented it and how they implemented it? When did any of that crap happen? You have such hypocrisy. You're such a duplicitous lying sack of shit. Why don't you ask the same questions to your own physics? Okay, I mean, it's just too stupid. I have to explain to you where electrons came from and where protons came from, or you can't do physics? Physics isn't about creation, okay? Physics is about what actually physically happens in the interactions. Creation is a story for somebody who has the preposterous arrogance to think they have any evidence at all for what creation would be. It happened a long time ago, and it happened in a place we can't see. So how the fuck is anybody going to tell you that story, fucking tard? Oh, you're just so fucking dishonest. You don't ask these questions of yourself, and yet you'll ask them to somebody else, you dishonest sack of shit. Why not just say the matter has force in the first place? Because then it can't interact, you idiot. How would it exchange anything if there's no force and the matter has the force? What would it be exchanging? The whole point is that the force bits of force are exchanged. They change when they interact with each other. So when a physicist is pulling the rock one way and some other physicist shows up and tries to pull it the other way, that's when there's an interaction. Okay, and the two of them both drop the rock and go their separate ways. Idiot. That would follow Occam's razor, you know, that thing that you say you love so much. I don't love it so much, but the point is how is that simpler? How would giving what would the force be that the matter's carrying? If the matter was carrying the force, whatever that means, I mean, what analogy am I going to use for the force? What component of the thing? How is it separate from the thing, the force? Well, it's no point. Okay. It's not circular logic if the force bits accomplish more than the imparting of force into classical particles. They are also used to explain gravity and magnetism. Well, it doesn't. I don't even have to go into all the other subjects it works to explain that it works for this purpose. Okay, that force is occupied moving matter, and that occupation means that it wastes work moving matter from point A to point B, and the matter getting from point A to point B, okay, is in fact just a waste of energy. And the universe is less energy in it because you moved a stupid fucking electron this way, and then you moved it 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 this way. You're just wasting a lot of energy. So that's all. And that's how gravity is created, is because you're wasting perfectly good energy. All right, so you're doing that now. Go on his website. He uses them to explain gravity, magnetism, and observe change. You are saying you don't explain these things well. Well, the videos are better than the website, frankly. Except they don't explain these things. So again, they do explain them. So I've been over it and over it. So whatever. So again, his premise of his argument that I can't give you a simple description that there's stuff called force in the universe that's moving the speed of light. It's the people moving and walking, and they never stop moving and walking. And then there's just presence. There's little boxes. That's matter, electrons and protons. And the people can pick up the boxes and carry them around. But when they carry them around, they move slower. And I can't explain to you that if I had a whole bunch of those people, 1,000 of them, and they hit the sides of the box, I put them in a box, and they hit the side of the box a certain number of times, that as soon as I put those little boxes in there for them to carry that are going to slow them down, the number of times they'll hit the outside box will diminish, will reduce, because they're now wasting time moving boxes around, and now they're actually less energetic. They move less distance in the same amount of time because they're wasting their time carrying boxes that slow them down. I'm just saying that simple analogy explains the concept. And you're saying I reject the concept because it's what? You can't understand the concept? that if I actually could build this little simulation of people and the fact that they slow down when they carry boxes, that if I actually gave you a simulation of that, you can't understand how that's less energy. And now if I put 1,000 people here that are carrying boxes and 1,000 people over here not carrying boxes, that this people would bang into those people more often. That the people in this group would bump into those more than they would bump into them back, and that something sitting here, just some neutral person that wasn't moving, that neutral person would get pushed in that direction. You can't understand? Bullshit. Okay. So, yeah. That's probably enough of a video. So we'll call it a day, and see you next time and such, and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's enough.